Architects of Prosperity, Episode 1.
Welcome to the Architects of Prosperity with your host, Ryan Lopez. This is the place where architecture meets investment and designs fuel profits. Join us as we build legacies and bring visions into reality. Your journey to building prosperity starts now.
Welcome to Architects of Prosperity. I am your host, Ryan Lopez. Today we have a guest by the name of Andy Teasley. He is a seasoned serial entrepreneur with 30 years of experience in building businesses, profound passion for real estate investing, and he advocates for real estate as a pathway to sustainable wealth, drawing on extensive seminar training and hands-on experience across various market cycles. He has a portfolio that includes over 50 properties with a keen focus on mobile home parks. Andy also dedicates himself to educating others. He publishes the weekly What If newsletter, offering insights and education on real estate investing, and occasionally teaches courses on financial literacy, mobile home flipping, and other types of real estate investing. A California native, Andy is committed to paying forward his knowledge to help others succeed in real estate. Andy, welcome to the show.
Oh, great to be here. It's always fun to get together and talk about real estate.
It is indeed. Let me take my glasses off. We definitely want to talk about things from a design sort of perspective. And I think one of the coolest things that you do is single lot mobile home parks. And I was wondering if you can explain a little bit about that and tell our listeners what that involves and how to design a career around doing this.
I've never tried to design a career around it. What I try to do is develop wealth around it. And the system is really very simple. It's you find a mobile home on a lot somewhere. It could be in a subdivision. It could be a rural where you've got 1.25 acres, 2.5, 10 acres, whatever it is. But someone at some point has decided to install a nice manufactured home on this piece of property, and now it's for sale. I acquire that home on that property, and what I will typically do is I will sell the mobile home and all the improvements that are located on that lot to someone who wants to move there and make it their residence. So, for example, I just picked one up in Kingman, Arizona. It's a nice mobile home. It's in okay condition. It's going to be sold as a handyman special. There's a septic tank with certified in escrow, which is included in the sale to the person that's going to purchase that mobile home and live there. So they are purchasing on terms. I finance it for them, a mobile home, complete with the propane tank, the septic tank. There's a power pole there. It's all included in the package. I sell them everything except for the dirt. And the dirt I keep, and I give them a 99-year lease on their dirt, which allows them to live there for the rest of their lives and maybe for their kids' lives. And at some point they might choose to sell, and then they can sell it and somebody else will take over that lease. And by doing this, I'm establishing a nice long-term income stream that will provide for me for the rest of my life. And then my daughter, and then eventually her children will all be fed by these single-space mobile home parks.
It's fantastic. It's actually really interesting. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you first got into this.
And I've been doing real estate forever. And after seeing the upcoming crash in 2005, I focused on land flipping. I was buying land from people who didn't appreciate what they owned. So I was picking up tax defaulted real estate properties in Riverside County, as well as a few here in San Bernardino County. And I was taking them, I was acquiring them, and I was turning around and selling them, getting a down payment that generally covered my acquisition cost, and then having a note, which was a very nice, simple system to build income, and that's what I was living off of. When the main crash happened in 2008, I found out that people, when they're looking for some bill not to pay, the land that they bought because it was in the path of progress, where they were going to maybe build a cabin someday, where they were going to have a horse ranch, suddenly when you choose what bill not to pay, that was an easy bill to choose not to pay. So I was handed back about 300 acres of Riverside County and still own quite a bit of that. And then in 2009 and 10, there was a fire sale on houses because our government had set up a system where the banks had to lend money to people that had no business getting money to buy a house. And the only way to do that was to create these crazy loan structures that they came up with, and that allowed them to get into houses they couldn't afford. Those houses got taken back when the crash happened because the government had forced that action and the government had guaranteed those loans. The banks were being made whole. They didn't care what they got when they sold a house. So I was buying houses for 10 cents on the dollar. I've got one that they had lent $325,000 on. They had racked up $32,000 in fines with the city while the bank owned it. And they sold me that 4-bedroom, 2-bath house in Desert Hot Springs for $14,500. It took my guys about 6 weeks to put that together, polish it back up again. We actually did some major upgrades, stuccoed it, and it was rented for over $1,000 a month immediately. So in 9 and 10, I bought 51 doors of rentals. The last 13 were in Blythe. That was a mistake. We can talk about that if you'd like. But 2015, 16, it got really hard to get those houses. So we weren't getting those free houses anymore. So I was whining to friends. And one of them said, you really need to call Tim King. He does Lonnie deals in Orange County. So I said, what's a Lonnie deal? And I went and had lunch with Tim King. He's a good friend. And he had me read Deals and Wheels, which is a book by Lonnie Scruggs that talks about the business model of flipping mobile homes in mobile home parks. And I understood the system because it was a very similar system to what I had been doing with the land back in the 2006 to 2008 period. So I started flipping mobile homes in parks. And one of the chapters in Lonnie's book, it talks about the Christmas present that he got for his wife. And being Lonnie, and being an author, they can stretch a simple story like that into a full chapter for a book. But the gist of it was he bought a mobile home on a piece of land in a development where there were some leased mobile home park type structures and some where you own your mobile and the land under it. So that inspired me to start looking for those. And one of my students and friends brought me my first deal like that. It was in a subdivision in Thousand Palms, California. We acquired the house. We paid $55,000 plus a $3,000 bird dog fee to acquire the mobile home and the land under it. We put about $5,000 into that. So we were all in $63,000 on that house. We borrowed $30,000 on the land. We borrowed $30,000 on the home. Then we turned around and sold the home. We took a $7,000 down payment. She took over the $30,000 loan to buy her house, and she leased the land under her house from us for $525 a month. And that allowed us to take that money and make payments on the lot note, because we borrowed $30,000 on the dirt. So we had borrowed $60,000. We got a $7,000 down payment. So at the end of that sale, we were $3,000 positive, and we had a lease that was going to go on forever. And we had sold the mobile home, and she was making the payments on that. So it's been a very lucrative thing, and we're actually paying that property off this year. So we'll have the land free and clear. So that was the first one we did, and I've gone out of my way to try to find more of those. I'm happy owning those nationwide. I like it better when there's someone willing to step in and do all the work and polish the mobile home up, find the buyer, get them in there, take care of, be my local boots on the ground, and set those up. I love doing those. I plan on doing quite a few more.
That's fantastic. And okay, so you talked about another gentleman that you often cite, and he's going to be this coming March or May, I think. He's going to be doing a class. Can you talk about that gentleman again?
Are you talking about Pete?
I think so. Yeah, Pete Fortunato.
So Pete Fortunato is the most creative mind in real estate. He's got a class coming up. He's tag teaming with John Schaub. And John Schaub wrote the book, Building Wealth One House at a Time. He's a brilliant man. They both are. They've been teaching real estate, doing real estate. Pete started in 1969. I'm not sure what year John started doing real estate, but he taught his first real estate class in 1972. When I was not really old enough to think about real estate. Pete's been around teaching. He's the most creative guy I've ever met. He thinks amazingly. So if you ever have an opportunity to be in an exchange meeting when Pete's involved at all, you will find it to be a great education. It's a good class, and you have an opportunity to make some money while you do it. So go ahead.
No, that's fantastic. And it's really funny because I know you to be a really, really creative real estate investor. And you come up with some of the craziest ideas that I've ever heard of. And you had mentioned that Pete Fortunato was one of the guys that, you kind of learned some of that stuff from. And we'll definitely talk a little bit about that stuff in other episodes, because you're an absolute wealth of information. But I just kind of wanted to let people know that, you're not kind of just a one-trick pony. You're not just, you have a focus, but you have an absolute wealth of knowledge and a connection to all these other people who are just, really incredible thought leaders in real estate investing.
I always like pointing out the fact that Pete makes me feel stupid because he's always about 2 steps ahead of me. And if I'll be sitting there processing a thought, trying to figure out what the right offer is to make, and he'll blurt it out. And when he says it, I realized he's made the perfect offer, and I don't know why I didn't think of it quicker. And of course, people accuse me of that too. So I tell them I can relate to how they feel. Well,
so going back to the single lot mobile home concept, how has it changed over time since you started it, and how have you changed your thought process or methodology behind finding the deals and getting the deals under contract and closing?
Wow. Everything evolves, and I've made modifications to my leases, obviously. I've come up with the structure with the 99-year lease with the 4% annual escalation clause. When I started, we were doing 2% annual escalation clauses because inflation was down around 2% back then. Since then, the federal government has turned on the printing presses, and we have an amazing quantity of cash been shoved out in the market because of the virus. So we've had to increase that. We've added the right to renegotiate whenever the property changes hands. We're entitled to adjust our lease to market rents. So things always change, and as soon as somebody shows me somewhere else where I've screwed up on some document somewhere, we're going to modify the document and fix the problem. So I like to tell people who are coming to me for knowledge to fail forward. You really should just learn by screwing up. That's the best way to learn. If you are careful to pay attention and actually learn, not just experience that and then go on and trip over that same log again.
Exactly. And it's really funny because there's so many people who feel like they have to get everything perfect and they have to know everything about everything before they can jump into their first deal. And it's not actually true. It's not actually how anybody who's successful in real estate has approached it.
If you've never screwed up and lost money on a deal, it's because you haven't ever made an offer.
Absolutely. It's like when I used to go skiing, I was a pretty avid skier. We always said, if you don't fall while you're skiing, you're not trying hard enough. You're
Yeah,
not expanding your skiing ability. So, it's just, there's so many aspects of that in general in life. And it's kind of a good mindset to consider. It's like, okay, if you do everything perfect. Oh, another thing, I'm a musician, and they always tell you, if you sound great while you're practicing, you're not trying hard enough. That's not practicing. You should sound terrible and work on making it sound better. That's practicing. So,
absolutely.
yeah. And so just again, it's just one of those things where different mindsets, different ways of thinking about it. It's how we grow as human beings. And I think that that's a really good kind of way to approach everything, including real estate. And so just out of curiosity, people probably are interested. What is how did you really get started in real estate? I know you didn't start there. I know that, like many people, you kind of meandered your way into that.
Well, like 90% of the people that I know who are active real estate investors today, I got started with flipping channels in the middle of the night, and I ran into an ad for a guru back in the 80s. Her name was Ione Young Gray, and last I heard, she's out of prison again, so I guess that's a good thing. I spent $3,000 on my guru, substantially less than people spend today, but in 1982, $3,000 was a hell of a lot more money than it is today.
Absolutely.
So that's where I got started. I got a basic education in real estate and built from there. I think times were different. We didn't have all the tools we have today. And it's funny, some of the tools that are still my go-to are so darn obsolete with the kids I'm around nowadays. When I talk about calling the title company and asking for a property profile, they think that's ridiculous. They'd rather pay for a subscription so they can just go look it up themselves. And when I got started, the challenge was that when you called and ordered a property profile, the title company would courier those out to your office. Well, when your office is, I'm sitting on my parents' bed on the extension phone, it's really easy to sound like a business, but it's really hard to look like a business that way. So my scam back then was I would say, well, I know where the plant is, and my brother-in-law, he works just around the corner, and he'll go on his lunch break and he'll swing by and pick it up. So don't bother. I appreciate what you're doing for me. I don't want you to spend that courier money. Just leave it at the plant at the front desk, and my brother-in-law will come pick that up. And then, of course, I'd go pick them up. But that's what we had to do back in the day. Nowadays, if you do still like a property profile, which I still do because I think it's a really nice accumulation of knowledge, they come in an email, and they're still free, thank goodness. So it's one of the great services you get from your title company.
It's fantastic. It's interesting that a lot of people don't know that you can ask title companies and even agents and brokers, to help you out on some of this stuff. They're a little bit hesitant to do that for whatever reason. Making a phone call, something as simple as that. What are your thoughts on how people should look at asking for help and contacting people that they need to get information from?
So one of the things that both Peter and I have expressed annoyance with is people in confusion. I'm actually kind of confused because people will call me and apologize and say, I'm sorry to disturb you. And I have to point out to the fact that I'm a boomer and I know what to do. If a phone call is disturbing me, it's going to get ignored. And this magical device I have in my pocket nowadays is going to record a message. If somebody wants to talk to me, they just have to speak into their phone, and I will know what they want, and I can call them back, or I can ignore them if they're annoying. If you want to apologize to me for something, apologize for texting me before you call, because that's annoying. All you youngsters seem to think that's a requirement.
It's very true. I don't know how we got to that point, because I grew up in between. I'm an Xer, and so I'm a Gen X guy. And we grew up back in the days when people used to come and just knock on the door randomly, and just stop by and say hi. And it's a very strange thing to do these days for some reason. And you have to, as the great Sebastian Maniscalco says, it's like you have to call from the driveway to make sure it's okay to come to approach the house.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I hear stories about my dad's family up in Humboldt County, and the folks decided to go on a vacation, and they were going to be out of town for a week, and they figured maybe they should lock the front door, except nobody had a key. They actually had to go buy a doorknob so they could lock their house to go on vacation, because literally no one had any idea where the key was to that door.
Oh, yeah. My dad still does that. So my dad's part of the silent generation. So okay. You're kind of in between him and I in terms of generations. And I still get on him about not locking his door when he leaves the house. He just leaves everything open. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Somebody might stop by. You never know.
Right.
Oh, that's a different world, Yeah. So, but yeah, and it's funny. We act like our crime and things are happening at a much greater rate. I don't know how much it's a greater rate and a lack of people skill, and how much of it is just the fact that we're more obvious. It's more out there and we see it. But
I think, there was something about that I'd say 6 to 8 years ago, that they were talking about how people perceive crime as being more prevalent now than it was maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, something like that. And when you look at the statistics at that time, crime had fallen sharply, but it was the perception, because everybody has a camera in their pocket now, and everything is being recorded and thrown out there on social media and the web and the internet. And so there's this perception that there's more crime. Now, I don't know what it is these days. I mean, it seems like, especially in California, as you know, they're legalizing all kinds of crime and making it illegal to stop crime. So that we might see a sharp uptick recently, and we have to look at the statistics on that. But for a while there, it was a sharp decline across the board in all 50 states.
Absolutely. It was. And now it's turned around the other way. And yeah, the crime statistics make it look like crime's dropping, but that's just because we're not prosecuting people anymore. When you can walk out of the store with $1,000 worth of material and it's not a crime,
sure,
then that's going to happen. And it's absurd that in our society, employees get fired for stopping somebody from ripping off their store. But that's the way it is right now.
Definitely bizarre. So now we talked a little bit about how you started in real estate, and let's talk about, and we talked about where you are right now, and especially your preferred asset class and what you like to do in real estate. What about future outlook, maybe 5 to 10 years? What are you thinking for yourself?
For myself? Oh, well, when Dad goes to heaven, I'm going to be out of the state of California, because my parents were both very good squirrels, and they socked away a lot of traditional IRA money. My mother was certain that she was going to retire, and they were going to spend all that money they had saved in their traditional retirement account. And because she wasn't getting paid the money she was before she retired, she was sure that she'd take that money out and have it be taxed at a lower rate. And that's still a structure that is being preached to a lot of folks on putting money into their retirement accounts to appreciate that tax write-off this year and not pay the tax on that money until you take it out in the future. I have a completely different opinion on that, and we can go into a class on why you should Roth. But my parents have racked up a lot of money in a traditional retirement, and when I have to take that out because of the Secure Act, I have 10 years to take it out, and when I do, if I take it out in the state of California, it's going to cost me $1.5 million in state income tax alone. Because of that, I'm structuring my business so that I can move out of this state, move to a state where there is no income tax after my dad goes to heaven. So that's in the future. So I'm at this point papering out the assets that I have in California, because it's really hard to be a landlord clear across country. It's not a good situation, as I learned when I bought houses in Blythe. So moving is in my future. I spend a lot of time working on building my retirement plans. I'm a big investor in my Roth retirement plans, growing them very, very lead-footedly, and buying single-space mobile home parks, because 20 of those, and I will have more money than I can spend. And that's my goal, is to acquire more of those. They're very easy for me to run. They don't require any effort on my part. I just have to go open the mailbox and put the checks in the bank. So want more of those.
Fantastic. And for young investors just starting out, what do you make of the current situation in real estate right now? And where do you think it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years?
So nationwide, we have north of $6 million missing housing units. In California alone, it's 3 to 4 million missing housing units. We lack housing, both affordable and unaffordable. We just don't have enough houses. We're not building enough houses. So because of that, house values are going to keep climbing, in spite of the fact that the government is printing money just like a drunken sailor. We are going to have additional funds, additional demand. So I don't see a big drop in housing value. So the question is, if you're young and you're getting started, number one, fully fund your Roth IRA. If you do nothing else, but just fully fund your Roth IRA and make sure it's growing well. Have a good, real self-directed Roth IRA and grow that. I was doing a calculation at lunch yesterday with someone from our group, and she's 30, and I pointed out the fact she had 50 years to go, and she's got a little money, and she was asking where she should invest it. And I had her put in her financial calculator, $6,500 negative for present value, 50 years, which is 600 months as a term, 15% as an interest rate, and add not another penny to that and solve for the future value. And in 50 years, that $6,500 put away today would provide her with $8.5 million of tax-free money that she could spend after she was 59 and a half. So when you're young, you've got time on your side. Unfortunately, when we're young, we think we've got time on our side, so we don't have to act today. It's the opposite. You need to act today if you're young. You need to fully fund that retirement account and grow it, and that's very important. As far as investing in real estate, I would encourage everyone, that would be whether they're young or old, starting, thinking about starting, learn on little deals. Jimmy Napier was famous for telling everybody, you want to learn on little deals. Those are deals that aren't going to knock you over if they go sideways. I have a lot of friends who were just growing and overborrowing and really living on the edge. And when the 2008 crash happened, they ended up handing everything back because they were just so over leveraged on everything, and they could not hold out the 3 or 4 months it took for rents to get normalized and actually start increasing. So be sure that your tenants can afford to pay for the house that you have, and you can replace the house quickly. So if you're learning on small deals, then as long as you have a little income, you can make those payments. You can weather that. It's certainly a good idea to have some reserves or have friends with money. Will both solve that problem. Friends with money are more efficient. Having funds sitting in a bank not making you anything is inefficient. But be in a position to solve a problem when the problem comes, because problems always will come.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Andy. I think we're going to wrap up that segment and move into a mini segment, which is something we're doing at the end of every show. We're going to have a quick series of mini segments that help potential investors learn something a little bit new, learn something different, and let's see what you have to offer for our listeners. So this is the quick tip corner. So the point of this is to do a brief segment where you give some kind of actionable tip to young investors or current investors that can help them just move forward in their career, further their career as they grow.
A quick tip. Okay, if you don't know how to run your financial calculator, I would encourage everyone to take a class, learn how to run your financial calculator. There's a great class coming up in a couple of weeks in Riverside. It's being taught by Rich Rice on how to run your HP 10BII. If you go to K2 Development or inadaydevelopment.com, you can download their HP 10BII app. You can get in your app store as well. You want the one from In a Day Development. You do not want any other ones. It has some interesting tools on it. And learning how to use that tool is the difference between knowing a deal is good enough and knowing exactly how good a deal is. And by playing what if, which is what we should all do if we're going to be real estate investors, and that is tweak the numbers and ask yourself, what if I do it this way instead? What if I do it this way instead? Run those numbers, play with that what if with your calculator. That will step up your game substantially. So if there's one quick tip, it's learn how to use your financial calculator.
Fantastic. Okay. And our next segment is Market Snapshot. What do you see the market doing in real estate in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think the rental housing market is going to stay steady. I think people always need a place to live. I think certain zones in the country are going to make being a housing provider inefficient and expensive because government's going to interfere. And it's up to us to see that coming, to fight against it as hard as we can. And when it happens, to accept the fact that investing in those communities is not a safe thing to do, to move on to an area where it is safe to invest, and move along with your rentals. Don't own your rentals far from home. So as far as commercial and in office space, I have no way to predict that. What I read tends to tell me that office space is going to be surplus going forward. You've been hearing vacancies in the 20 to 30 to 40% range, which means that's probably not the best place to put your money. And it's certainly not a place to learn because it's an expensive place to be. Retail, who knows? Amazon is between the COVID and the Amazon, it's really made retail businesses, providing landlording to retail. It's kind of iffy. And I think you're going to have concerns with that. So that being said, I think housing is going to be the best place to have your money.
Okay. And just a quick fire round, just a handful of questions. What's your favorite book in real estate?
Oh, favorite book in real estate. Richest Man in Babylon, for as far as financial knowledge in real estate. It would be How to Finance Any Real Estate, Any Place, Anytime by James Misko. It's a great little formula book, lots of little 3 and 4 page chapters that will inspire you structures that you can use to go forward.
All right. So what is your favorite state in the union?
Confusion.
Notice I put the union because I know you.
My family's been in California for a very long time, and unfortunately, the government is forcing me to leave. So I don't really have I enjoy it here. I enjoy Florida, but I don't know that I have a favorite state.
Got it. Okay. What is your favorite podcast? You don't have to say mine.
I'm not a big podcast watcher.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm more of a book reader. I usually, if I have spare time, I have my nose in a book.
Okay. Well, in lieu of a podcast, do you read any blogs or any information online about real estate?
Oh yeah. Well,
So your favorite?
Bill 10 has a great newsletter, comes out every Saturday. I read that almost religiously. I think my newsletter is very valuable. And that's probably the two that I would send people to.
Okay, last question. Besides the calculator, what is your favorite tool that you would recommend all real estate investors get?
Oh, that one's easy. A yellow pad and a thinking chair.
Very good. All right, Andy. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show. Please tell people how they can get in contact with you and get more information.
Super. My email address is Andy the Christmas Guy, all spelled out, and it's Christmas, not X, at yahoo.com, because I'm old. That's ANDYTHECHRISTMASGUY at yahoo.com. And if you send me an email and ask, I will add you to my newsletter. It is free. And you will get 3 calculator questions, the answer to last week's 3 calculator questions, upcoming vetted education, and exchange meetings that I attend. And if you want to see my brain in action, please join me at the Inland Empire Real Estate Investors Club Wednesday noon exchangers meeting. And that's available at www.iereic.org. I presume you'll put those in the links there somewhere in your...
Absolutely. We'll have all the links that you've given us today in the show notes. And we appreciate you on, and we look forward to having you on again.
Super. It's been fun. Have a nice day.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Architects of Prosperity with your host, Ryan Lopez. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit reijunction.com, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Architects of Prosperity.